Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the commodity trade. I'm Dipanshu Bhandari. Lots of talking points in the commodity universe. Let's first get some idea on where oil prices are headed, and of course focus on the metal universe as well. Pratesh Malia, Chief Analyst, Non-Agri Commodities and Currencies at Angel Broking, is on the phone line with us. Pratesh, you know what, before I talk about crude, do you have a view on the rupee as well? It's hit record lows in trade today at 69 now. What's the road ahead?
Yes, Dipanshu. I think the way for rupee is headed higher towards 70, but then I would see this as a confluence point wherein possibly RBI would intervene and would bring it some down lower. But then rupee heading higher towards 70 is a sign that trade deficit, or for that matter current account deficit, is something which is a cause of concern for this government, and which is reflected in the rupee levels. And hence I think in the next target that would be seen as 70. But yes, there's a higher risk at this point. So people who are buyers at this point, I think it's better to ignore rupee for some time.
Would you also have like a slightly longer term view, maybe a 6 month to 1 year horizon? Because on the dollar index also now traders are talking of a big up move, and similarly on the currency front, then you are going to see a lot of volatility.
Yes, Dipanshu. I think if the dollar index is headed higher, and which seems to be the case, wherein possibly furthermore rate hikes is something which would possibly bring a positive move in dollar towards 97 mark. In that case, the rupee USD-INR pair I think is headed towards 72. But then you really have to look in for other signals besides the dollar if you're just looking at the USD-INR pair. But in the near term, I think I would not really buy at this levels. I would wait for some time, probably for some signals whether to take some trade actions on the USD-INR pair.
Fair point. Let's talk about crude prices then. Very, very volatile of late. There was a big spike, now cooling off slightly. What's the sense on the Indian pair then?
I think this move in oil prices is purely on comments from US, wherein they are asking all the countries to not take any imports from Iran. But as far as you see the contrasting side of the story, there are three nations, which is US, Russia, and Saudi Arabia, pumping in more than 11 million barrels per day. I think there is nothing called a shortage of supply oil markets, and I think possibly oil prices are at a point where you would see some bit of correction. So even in oil, I think it's a risky point, but if you're placing a near-term bet, I think I would be buyer just to play a risky trade. I think 5080 is what the near-term target would be. But yes, the note of caution attached to this price because it has risen very fast at a very short span of time in 2-3 trading sessions. So I would advise a trade of a note of caution here, people who are buyers in oil.
Okay. Prathamesh, I request you to just hold on for 2 minutes. Prathamesh, getting back to your strategies, copper, talk to us about that. We are seeing some kind of a revival in the base metal basket after a big slide. What's your strategy for copper today?
Copper is ranging in 450 and on the lower side 460 on the higher side, and I think I would play this range if you're looking to trade copper in the near term. I think 452 is what the entry points for copper would be. The stop would be 447 and target would be higher towards 458. But then the important point there is the wage discussion that is going on in Economist, the outcome of which would possibly come in July first week. So I would possibly wait for that outcome and then possibly decide the direction and course of copper prices.
Before we let you go, Prathamesh, precious metals, how are you viewing the space?
Precious metals is like in a state of conundrum as such, because despite US and China being at trade wars, I think there is no uncertainty that's moving gold or silver. I think it's headed lower only. But I would possibly avoid gold and silver if you're trading a bit per se. But if you're a risky trader, I think 30,800 is what we are looking for gold as far as immediate near-term targets are concerned. But as far as silver goes again, I think 40,000 is the immediate target that we are looking at.
All right, Prathamesh, thanks so much for joining in this afternoon. So those are some strategies for you on crude, copper, as well as the precious metal universe. On that note, completely out of time in this edition of the Commodity Trade. Thank you so much for watching. Lunch Money takes forward all the action on this.